All right. Welcome to the semi-monthly, semi-annual, kind of whenever we get around to it, bariatric podcast. This episode we're having a repeat guest. So I'm with Dr. Bo Neichoy. Dr. Neichoy, thanks for joining us again.
No problem, Maddie. Thanks for having me.
We talked about the first episode we did together. We talked about several different subjects. And one thing you hit on, and you said that would be a topic for another podcast, was staffing. How do you grow your team as you go to 500 cases, 800 cases, and beyond? In the last couple of years, you guys have added a third surgeon as you've gotten busier. You also have a general surgeon that runs office out of here. So I thought we would just take 10, 15 minutes and chat about what it's looked like for you and Blue to go from basically 0 bariatric cases to almost 1,000. And what does that look like in terms of bringing people on board?
Yeah. It's been an adventure. I'd say, just recapping kind of where we started. Both my partner and I started off as small town general surgeons in the Panhandle of Texas, and kind of got disenchanted with the employed life, and made a pact to meet up in Amarillo for a bariatric clinic. Our first clinic had 2 exam rooms, a common workroom for both surgeons, a PA, a dietitian, and some extraneous staff. We had 2 people up front. So all in all, I bet we had 4 full-time employees, a part-time manager, and then we had a part-time kind of procedural technician that would come in and help us with some of our in-office procedures. We had started doing transnasal endoscopy, and neither one of us knew how to turn the machine on, so we had to basically hire somebody to turn the machine on for us. But it was, pretty small. I'd say 4 months into that, we realized that was a mistake on clinic space, and then immediately started looking for a bigger space. And then, just kind of recap how volume grew. We started off, there were 2 established bariatric practices, so we were fighting for scraps, and I bet 80% of our practice when we first started was Medicare, but I've always viewed Medicare as probably much better than billboards. Here in the Panhandle, little old ladies talking in church are pretty dang good advertising, and so we basically grew our business kind of off the back of always saying yes to Medicare, and then developing a cash route for patients. And that was the 2 biggest growth elements. We at first, the clinic manager was a person of many hats. They did billing, they did the managing, we hired from within friend groups, and at first it grew pretty organically and pretty slow.
Yeah. And that was what year?
In 2013.
2013. Mm-hmm. And at what point did you guys say, we got to bring on a full-time manager?
2013.
Yeah. And I mean, you have told several stories about just the challenges of growing pains and collections, and suddenly looking up and collections was 6 months behind and you guys were running out of cash. But I guess what I'm trying to say, in every bariatric clinic that we've been in, the practice administrator or the office manager always wears way different hats. That position never looks the same in 2 clinics. Mm-hmm. So as you got to, I don't know if you can even put a case number to it, but what were there stressors on you and Blue that you said, you know what, man, someone else needs to come in and do this? And when you hired a full-time manager, what were they doing? Yeah.
So I'd say when we went to a full-time manager, I bet that was probably at the 150, 200 case a year mark. And that's about the same time we kind of pulled out of all general surgery call. And so we evolved as a clinic, said, there's enough bariatric need in our market. We're going to exit taking general surgery call, probably one of the best decisions of my life. And at that same time, we were doing in-house billing. The turnover rate was a little intimidating on the billing side. We had So basically, just I think everybody kind of evolves through these things, but we had in-house billing, and then we went with a different EMR software, externalized our billing, and then 2 years into that, where you kind of start calculating the things you're missing out on collections. As a lot of these external billing agencies, it's all about the first pass. So if they're really good at collecting on the first pass, but if there's any kind of holdup or rejection on the insurance company, they just wipe it off the books. And so we actually, brought all that back in the past 8 months. And so, currently we have that back in the house. But I think going back to your original question, what was the duty of the office manager? So I'd say up until 3 years ago, our office manager also kind of served as our closer, right? Mm-hmm. So they, you'd have a patient that would meet with the surgeon, go through all the details of the surgery, risk, benefits, just that initial visit. And then we would immediately take them to what we called our bariatric coordinator, which was also our office manager. And she would go through insurance with them. If they didn't have insurance, go through price, financing options with them. She'd probably, have some fantastic sales story that would close the deal.
And she was good.
Yeah, and she was good.
She was
and that was kind of her main duties. I think she also wore the hiring hat. I think one weakness was the firing hat. But we had basically given her the ability to hire, fire. We were using our external billing agency to provide reports as far as collections. But I'd say one of the big reasons we left that external collection agency was we weren't happy with the reports they were giving us.
And that was, I remember that was, your staff was probably around 14, 15, 16 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Does that seem right?
Yeah.
That was a few years ago. And then as you guys are growing, case volume's growing, I'm sure at certain moments you guys got together and said, we are overstaffed.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have that conversation?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I think anybody that walks through their office and finds 5 or 6 people on Facebook or on social media, you start scratching your head, or are they waiting for something, or are they just genuinely bored and have nothing to do and I'm paying them to check their social media? I think that goes through every practice. So you start going through, and this is where we failed at your advice. You've always advised us to have a structural organizational tree and define the duties of everybody associated with a business. I think the pushback we on the clinic side always have is, well, people do so many different things, and what's your natural response to that?
To the comment that people do so many things?
Yeah. they're probably not doing much of anything efficiently, right?
Right. I think that's what we've seen is if it's everybody's job, then it's nobody's job, usually. And then, the status quo in every clinic that we've ever been in is everyone's so busy, their hair's on fire, oh my gosh, we couldn't handle one more thing. And if you drill down to what everybody's doing, if you put it on the schedule for the hours you have in the day, that's typically not true, or if it is, it comes in seasons. But
yeah,
I don't know.
What's the best way to starve a dog?
I don't know. What is it?
Tell 2 different people to feed it, right?
So now it seems like you guys have, do you know what your total headcount is here now?
Yeah, currently at, I think 24 employees, and that's including and I'm sure we'll go through this, but the evolution is, we pulled our office manager out of coordinating, brought in a dedicated coordinator that wasn't dealing with, the office headaches, or coordinator / sales closer. And then ultimately we ended up bringing in a CEO to really capture numbers, to hold efficiencies accountable, to organize all the other kind of business avenues that we had explored, and basically takes our dreaming mentality and puts it on paper and makes it a reality. 4 of those employees are dedicated billing, so insurance verification and billing. We have one person that is specifically for authorizations, preoperative authorizations. We have one dedicated employee that specifically tracks the entire voyage of a patient through our clinic from initial consult to surgery. We have an on-site store with vitamins and other products, so a full-time employee there. We have two at check-in. We have 2 at check-out. I'm missing.
Mid-level.
Yeah, 2. So we have 3 nurse practitioners. Well, two nurse practitioners and a half-time nurse practitioner, full-time dietitian, full-time nutritionist at this point, but she kind of co-manages the store. So she runs the store, gives vitamin advice, but she's also a trained nutritionist. Sure, I'm leaving out quite a few in there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good list. And if another physician or clinic listens to this, the big difference is you guys run a quote comprehensive program. So huge difference in do surgery, and there's not tons of follow up, but you guys not only have a pretty robust non-surgical program, but you have a pretty robust follow-up program as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, just like any bariatric clinic, long-term follow-up tends to stink. But we strive to go above and beyond to keep patients engaged, and that's a little bit to do with you as well. So we're keeping them kind of online engaged and engaged through the drip campaign, which I think pushes our 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month follow up to a higher percentage than the average clinic. And that's one thing I would beg people to look at. Most as surgeons, it's not something we particularly specialize in long-term follow-up care. But once you start running the finances of retention of those patients in your clinic, I think it behooves people to put a lot more emphasis into that. So we're probably managing 3,000 to 4,000 people in the post-operative process. We have a full-time we call it the Rewire program, so it's a non-surgical program that specifically focuses on nutritional education. I think at any time we have probably we probably average 45 to 50 patients in that health coaching program, up to 60. And there's some subtle nuances there. We're probably bringing in a lot more to that because we give them the first visit for free. So there's a lot more busyness there than the long-term retention in that program. And just the other ancillary service lines that we offer too. If anybody knows Mickey Seeger down in San Antonio, he talked me into buying a DEXA machine. So we've incorporated that into our practice. We have a full-time employee that manages that schedule and is also kind of the health and wellness long-term care coordinator. But yeah, we've incorporated a lot of that long-term follow-up into the clinic.
Mm-hmm. Also, I thought of this, but don't want to forget. I don't think every clinic would say, "Oh yeah, well we should hire a CEO to run the company." You guys also have several entities running out of here. That CEO also has lots to do with the surgery center across the street, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you didn't have all those other things going and you didn't have the surgery center, would you still have the revenue to justify a full-time CEO?
That's a good question. I think you got to balance money in your pocket versus lifestyle and overall enjoyment of your job. So now that I've tasted what it feels like, I'd be more than willing to take a pay decrease for it. But if you'd asked me before that person was in that role, I don't know if I'd have said yes to it. But and I had lots of conversations with you about this. Like, I'm drowning in checking credit card payments and balancing loans and making sure payroll's done and things of that nature where I've been able to completely step out of that role and just be a surgeon and then get home and get with my kids and family. And before I tasted it, I didn't know the value of it, but now that it's in my life, it'd be hard for me to go without it.
Do you feel like the culture is really healthy here right now?
Yeah. I think a big challenge in any large clinic, when you only have 4 or 5 employees, I don't think this is a big deal. But once you get, 15, 20, 25 employees and, man, I wish I knew the square footage of this place. What would be your guess?
Oh my gosh. 25,000?
25,000 square feet?
I don't know.
That seems a little big. I think you're a man exaggerating. But once you got the insurance crew that's kind of in one area, you got the the nurse practitioners in one area, the MAs in one area, the front desk, back desk. You start getting a little cliquish, and so we do have to kind of really pay attention to getting those people together, really getting them to share their ideas and just the left hand knowing what the right hand's doing type situation.
Sure. What's the biggest threat to having a thriving bariatric practice? Or maybe a better question is, what's the biggest threat to bariatrics in the near future?
Biggest threat to bariatrics in the near future. I think we all want, as bariatric surgeons, we want to see the coverage from an insurance perspective, whether that's having conversations with employers and helping them negotiate that into their package, government-backed insurance programs roll out, and we see that kind of increase over the next 2 years or so. Will that have bariatric coverage? Who knows? Where does growth lie? That's a big question mark. I think the biggest when people have money to spend, they take care of themselves. So the biggest threat would be a downturn in the economy. With rising deductibles and max out of pockets, your insurance products are that used to be $1,000 for a patient, now it's $300, $400, $500. Some of these employers are throwing in specialty contracts, so you have a specific bariatric deductible on top of your already placed max out of pocket and deductible with your family. On the cash side, most of our growth has been in the cash component. So if money dries up and people start holding on to it, I think that's probably the biggest threat.
Mm-hmm. Last question. Out of everything that goes on here, what reports or what metrics, what are you paying attention to each week or each month that just makes you feel good and warm and fuzzy inside?
You're talking about this on the surgeon side or the overall business management side?
I guess on the surgeon side, that hey, we've got patients coming. I know we've got volume on the way. Is there anything specifically you're looking at that makes you sleep well at night?
Yeah.
What are those things?
Yeah. I think the biggest number is how many people are coming through your clinic, right? So what's your new patient volume? Where is that compared to average? But on the flip side of that is what's our conversion percentage? So how many of those new leads are being converted into actual surgeries? And then, that's also where you come in, like how many people are in the funnel, what's the interest out there? What's, what people are searching for? How are we collecting their interest and how are we nurturing that into a consult? So, where I spend most of my time is, what's our volume? What are we seeing come through new patient wise? What's our conversion percent? Because you can get 1,000 people in your door per year, but if your conversion rate's 25%, that's a lot of dollar bills wasted on advertising. So I view every patient that comes in like we've had to nurture that. I think you would agree, right? Mm-hmm. At some point, they've probably been nurtured to the point. What's the percentage of people coming through your? Can you disclose on your podcast? How many new patients coming into our clinic have been touched by Boost Bariatrics?
Dang, that's a good question. Total online leads compared to
versus people that show up and it was a referral that basically they didn't search for us on the internet. They don't you haven't collected their information. They haven't gotten an email from Boost Bariatrics.
Sure. Well, there's about 40 to 50% of your consults don't come through Boost.
Yeah.
So, I have that number right here. But, yeah, so out of if you don't care to disclose how many consults you guys did last month, you can.
Yeah, no problem.
So you did 143 bariatric consults. 87 of those came through Boost. So what is that?
I'm bad at math.
40% or so did not come through Boost. So those people, they called the number, or they visited but never opted in, or they were a straight referral. So
yeah, but that's still a high number. Right?
Absolutely.
So they're, for the most part, these people have been nurtured, and we've spent that money, we spent that time.
Right.
So for me to get that patient in my clinic and have that initial visit, but not pay attention to what is said to that patient afterwards,
Right.
is a crime. I mean, you're basically throwing your money away, right?
Yeah.
So if I could give advice to anybody, any of the people out there, that having that coordinator, having that one person that is really good at relating to patients, that's really good at knowing the pathway, that's really good at knowing options, whether that be financial options, whether it be insurance options, consulting with them on, a lot of people will come in with either their husband, wives, and they have two different insurance products where, the husband's plan has bariatric benefits and the wife's plan doesn't. Our coordinators are able to say, hey, have you thought about, moving this around to where you go on his product? And, having a coordinator that just really knows and understands the process. Because like I was saying, you can get 1,000, 1,500, 1,600 patients in your door every year. But if your conversion rate doesn't eke out of the 30s,
That's a lot of consults to say in the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like repeating myself over and over again, but it's definitely more worth it if you can convert it to a surgery, right?
Right.
Well, good.
Okay. Man, thanks for your time again.
No problem, Maddie.
All right.